The Mirror Effect. Chapter 1. Reflection. The first time I notice something is wrong with my reflection, I'm standing in the bathroom mirror of my penthouse apartment on the 42nd floor of the Manhattan Plaza, and I'm noticing that my smile doesn't quite reach my eyes the way it should. My name is Dr. Daniel Chen, and I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in dissociation disorders. I've spent 17 years studying the human mind, particularly the ways it fragments under pressure, the ways trauma splits consciousness into separate compartments, the ways a person can become a stranger to themselves. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm standing at the sink in my Italian marble bathroom, looking at my reflection in the museum-quality mirror I had installed after my divorce from Alexandra 3 years ago. In the mirror, my face looks correct, symmetrical, well-maintained. Dark hair with acceptable gray at the temples. The kind of face that inspires confidence in patients who come to my office in Midtown looking for answers about their fractured minds. But the smile is wrong. I watch my reflection smile, and I see something in the corner of the mouth twitch. Just slightly. Just enough to be noticeable if you're looking for it. Just enough to make me wonder if I'm actually looking at myself, or if I'm looking at some projection of myself. Some version of Daniel Chen that exists in the space between reality and the glass. I reach up and touch my face. My reflection mirrors the movement perfectly. Hand to cheek. The skin is warm. Stubble from not shaving this morning. Everything is synchronous. Everything is correct. And yet, I look away from the mirror. When I look back, my reflection takes a half-second longer to appear than it should. It's probably nothing. A trick of light. A delayed neural processing. A stress-induced hallucination brought on by my 16-hour workweek and my increasingly complicated relationship with sleep. I've been prescribing myself sleep aids for 3 weeks now, ever since the conference in San Francisco, where I presented my research on the neurological markers of dissociation. Since Alexandra called and said she was getting remarried. Since the grant committee rejected my latest funding proposal. Since the world started feeling like it was happening to someone else. I don't think much about the mirror incident until it happens again. It's Tuesday. I'm in my office on Madison Avenue, which overlooks Central Park. The building has impressive mirrors in all the right places. In the bathroom, in the hallway, in the waiting room where patients sit before their sessions. Watching themselves, watching themselves. I've always believed that self-reflection is essential to mental health. You have to be able to look at yourself and see the truth. I'm about to see a new patient, and I'm reviewing her intake form. Her name is Victoria Harrow. She's 36 years old. She's complaining of depersonalization, a sense that she's observing her life from outside her body, that she's watching herself as though she's a character in a movie, that nothing feels quite real. The irony of this particular patient landing in my chair on this particular day almost makes me laugh. I stand up to greet her in the waiting room, and I catch my reflection in the mirror that hangs across from my office door. For just a moment, just the briefest fragment of a second, my reflection stands motionless while I move. When I blink, we're synchronized again. Victoria is a striking woman with sharp cheekbones and nervous eyes. She shakes my hand firmly, as though trying to convince herself through touch that she exists. "I don't feel real," she says before we even sit down. "I know I'm here. I know intellectually that I'm occupying space and time. But I feel like I'm watching myself from somewhere outside my body. Like I'm an observer of my own life." "How long has this been happening?" I ask, making notes. My handwriting is steady, controlled, professional. 3 weeks. since my husband left me. 3 weeks, exactly the same timeline as my own spiral into strangeness. Tell me about that, I say. She does. She tells me about a marriage that looked perfect from the outside but was hollow at the core. About the way she and her husband had stopped making eye contact. About how she'd caught him in their bedroom with her best friend. And instead of feeling rage or heartbreak, she'd felt nothing. She'd watched the scene as though she was observing it on a screen, her body reacting, tears flowing, voice shouting. But she, the essential core of her consciousness, was somewhere else, somewhere safe, somewhere unreachable. The depersonalization is a defense mechanism, I tell her. Your mind is protecting you from trauma by creating distance between your conscious self and your painful reality. It's actually quite common in cases of severe emotional trauma. How do I stop it, she asks. We'll work on grounding techniques, mindfulness. We'll help you reconnect with your body through physical sensation. But more importantly, we'll work on processing the trauma underneath the dissociation. I write her a prescription for an SSRI and schedule her for twice-weekly sessions. After she leaves, I sit in my chair and stare at the mirror on my office wall. My reflection stares back. I watch carefully. This time, I'm looking for the delay. I raise my hand slowly, observing my reflection's response. It matches my movement perfectly. Hand to temple, fingers through hair. Everything's synchronized, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm not the one controlling the reflection. That the reflection is the active agent, and I'm the one responding. I close my eyes and count to 10. When I open them, my reflection is smiling at me. A smile I don't remember making. Chapter 2. Fracture. That night, I don't go home. Instead, I drive my Range Rover to the upstate property I bought 5 years ago. A retreat, I told myself at the time. A place to decompress, to do research, to get away from the city, and remember who I was before I became a mirror reflecting everyone else's trauma. The house sits on 15 acres of private land, surrounded by forest. There's a main structure and a guest cottage. I rarely come here anymore. Alexandra hated it. She said it was pretentious and useless, which was her way of saying I didn't invite her enough, which was my way of saying I didn't want her here. The house is cold when I arrive. The heating is off. There are dust covers on the furniture, white ghosts of the life I used to imagine living here. I move through the rooms like I'm walking through a museum dedicated to my own failed intentions. In the master bedroom, there's a mirror that spans the entire west wall. I had it installed as part of a renovation project that never quite finished. The mirror catches the last light of sunset, and the room glows with this strange amber luminescence. I stand in front of the mirror and watch myself. This time, the delay is obvious. I raise my left hand. My reflection raises its right hand, which should be my left hand in the mirror, but instead, it's raising the opposite hand, the hand that would belong to me if I were standing on the other side of the glass. The reflection is moving independently. I tell myself this isn't possible. I tell myself I'm experiencing a depersonalization episode of my own. I tell myself I need sleep and medication, and probably I should admit myself to a psychiatric hospital and let one of my colleagues evaluate me because clearly something is very wrong with my neurochemistry. My reflection smiles at me again, that same crooked smile from the bathroom mirror 2 days ago. The smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. The smile that looks like it's being worn by someone who doesn't quite understand how human faces work. "Hello, Daniel," my reflection says. It's my voice. It's my voice exactly, including the slight rasp I get in the afternoons, the subtle accent from my childhood in San Francisco, the way I tend to swallow before saying something important. But it's not me saying it. "This isn't real," I say aloud. "That's what you tell your patients," my reflection replies. "You tell them that dissociation feels real, but it's a psychological mechanism. You tell them their fractured sense of self is just their brain's way of coping with unbearable reality." "But what if you're wrong, Daniel?" "I'm hallucinating." "Are you? Or are you finally seeing clearly?" My reflection tilts its head. Think about it. Every session you sit with a patient and listen to them describe a sense of watching themselves from outside their body. And every time, you tell them it's pathological. It's broken. It's their mind malfunctioning under stress. But what if it's the opposite? What if dissociation is the most honest thing a human being can experience? I reach out and press my hand against the mirror. The glass is warm. That's not possible. Mirrors aren't warm. But my hand feels warmth, radiating from the other side. And when I press harder, the glass gives slightly, as though it's not glass at all, but some kind of flexible membrane. My reflection does the same, hand pressed against the other side of the glass. And for just a moment, I can see through the mirror into something else, something beyond. A space that's not my bedroom, but something darker. Something that looks like the waiting room of my office, but the furniture is arranged differently, and the walls are a slightly different shade of white. And there's something behind the desk that might be me, but also might not be. Then the mirror solidifies. My reflection is back to normal. Hand against glass. Mirror image perfection. "You're losing," my reflection says calmly. "Your grip on reality. Your sense of self. The carefully constructed personality you've built for the past 43 years. It's all fragmenting, Daniel. And the question is, are you going to fight it, or are you going to let yourself dissolve?" I pull my hand away from the mirror and run. Chapter 3. Investigation. I don't go to the hospital. Instead, I go to my office, let myself in through the after-hours entrance, and pull up my security footage. The building has cameras everywhere, in the hallways, in the waiting room, in the common areas. I've always told myself it's for security purposes. In reality, I think I've always been gathering footage of other people's lives because I was too uncomfortable examining my own. I start with the footage from the day I saw the mirror delay in my office. I watch myself move around the waiting room. I watch myself greet Victoria Harrow. I watch myself move back to my office, and I watch carefully as I pass the mirror. In the footage, I pass by the mirror completely normally. No delay, no independent reflection. Just a man walking, and his mirror image following perfectly. But I remember the delay. I remember my reflection standing still while I moved. I fast forward through the footage. I watch myself conduct the session with Victoria. The camera in my office isn't focused on the mirror, so I don't see what my reflection might have been doing while I was working. But I watch my own face during the session. The way I maintained eye contact, the way I took notes, the way I appeared completely professional and competent. And I notice something odd. There are moments when my face doesn't quite match my body language. When I'm leaning forward with interest, my facial expression seems slightly delayed. When I'm writing a note, my mouth continues moving for half a second after my hands stop. It's subtle. It would be invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. But it's there. I call Dr. Sarah Hirsch, my colleague, and the only person at the hospital I actually trust. We met 15 years ago in residency, and we've stayed close through various professional and personal crises. She's the closest thing I have to a friend, which is a sad commentary on my life, but also probably accurate. I need to talk to you about something, I tell her. In person, not on the phone. We meet at a cafe in Murray Hill, away from the hospital. Sarah arrives with her characteristic punctuality. Exactly on time, which means I've been waiting for 7 minutes, which means she was running 3 minutes late but made up for it by walking faster. You look terrible, she says, sitting down across from me. Thanks. Seriously, Daniel, when was the last time you slept? 4 days ago. 4 days? She flags down the waitress. Coffee, black, and bring him whatever the sugar situation is today. She turns back to me. What's going on? I tell her. Not everything, because everything sounds completely insane, but enough. The mirror incidents. The sense that my reflection is moving independently. The growing conviction that I'm fragmenting into separate parts. She listens without interrupting, which is how I know she's genuinely concerned. Sarah has never been good at holding back criticism or advice. You're experiencing a dissociative episode, she finally says, probably triggered by the accumulated stress of the past few months. The divorce, the grant rejection, the increased caseload. Your mind is trying to distance itself from your emotional reality by creating this external manifestation of fragmentation. That's what I keep telling myself. But you don't believe it. No, I don't. Sarah stirs her coffee. Do you know what you're describing? These symptoms, the sense of a separate self, the independent reflection, the feeling that you're being observed from outside your body? Depersonalization. Clinical depersonalization, yes, but also what some researchers call the Cotard-Capgras spectrum. Patients who begin to believe that their reflection, or body, or thoughts are not their own. That there's an imposter inhabiting their body. It's a recognized psychiatric condition, though rare. You think I'm developing Capgras syndrome? I think you need to check yourself into a hospital and let me run some tests. Brain imaging, neurochemistry, the full workup. If I do that, my license is suspended pending psychiatric evaluation. I know. My practice closes, my patients are transferred, my reputation is destroyed. I know that too. We sit in silence. There has to be another explanation, I finally say. Something physical. Something that's not purely psychological. Like what? I don't know. Some kind of neurological condition. A tumor. Something that's causing hallucinations or distortions in my visual cortex. Then you need MRI, CT scan, neurologist consultation. Which means hospitalization and suspension of my license. Daniel, Sarah leans across the table. You're not thinking clearly. You haven't slept in 4 days. You're experiencing what sounds like significant dissociation. You need help. But I'm already standing up. I'm already leaving money on the table. I'm already moving toward the door. Don't do this, Sarah calls after me. Don't try to diagnose yourself. It never ends well. She's right. I know she's right. Every psychiatrist who's ever tried to treat themselves has ended up deeply damaged. We're supposed to refer to other professionals. We're supposed to avoid the trap of seeing ourselves as special cases who can apply clinical knowledge to personal situations. But I can't go to a hospital. I can't let them take my license. I can't let my colleagues know that the great Dr. Daniel Chen, who writes papers about other people's fractured minds, is fracturing himself. Chapter 4. Reflection. I spend the next 3 days at my upstate house, and I spend most of that time in front of the mirror. I watch my reflection move. I document the delays. I try to establish patterns. Sometimes the delay is a fraction of a second. Sometimes it's longer. Sometimes my reflection moves in ways I'm not moving. It raises an arm when I'm standing still. It changes its facial expression independently. It seems to be having thoughts I'm not having. On the 4th day, my reflection speaks to me again. "You're looking tired," it says. "Have you eaten anything today?" I can't remember if I've eaten. The concept of food seems abstract, distant. My body exists in this house, but I'm not entirely sure I'm the one occupying it anymore. "Why are you here?" I ask the reflection. "What are you?" "I'm you," my reflection says. "The you that you've been trying to hide from. The you that you've been fragmenting into smaller and smaller pieces through dissociation. I'm the sum of all the parts you've rejected." "I haven't rejected anything." "Haven't you? You've spent 17 years listening to other people's psychological fragmentation while maintaining rigid control over your own psyche. You've medicalized everyone else's pain while refusing to acknowledge your own. You've built a career on distance and objectivity and the careful maintenance of a professional persona. That creates enormous strain on the psyche, Daniel. Stop talking like you're a separate entity. You're me. My reflection. Am I? My reflection steps back from the glass. Or are you the reflection? Think about it. Every day you go to work and sit with patients who describe dissociation. Every day you listen to them describe a sense of being separate from their bodies, watching themselves live their lives. What if that's not pathological, Daniel? What if that's actually the normal human condition, and the idea of being unified with your body and mind is the delusion? That's philosophy, not psychiatry. Philosophy and psychiatry used to be the same thing, my reflection says. Before we decided that the mind had to be measurable and quantifiable and reducible to neurotransmitters and genetic predisposition. Before we decided that consciousness could be medicalized and that a fractured psyche was a broken thing that needed fixing. I press my forehead against the mirror. The glass is warm again. It feels alive. Tell me what's happening to me, I say. You're becoming conscious of the split, my reflection says. The part of you that observes and the part of you that acts. Most people don't notice the separation because they don't look closely. They live in the action without examining the observer. But you're a psychologist. You examine consciousness for a living. And now you're noticing something that most people spend their entire lives not noticing. That you are not actually unified. You are a collection of processes that have been trained to behave as though they're a single entity. And what are you? One of those processes? I'm the process that observes, the one that watches Daniel Chen move through the world and wonders what it would be like to be in control instead of just witnessing. I'm the part of you that's tired of being confined to a mirror. I'm the part that wants to be real. I pull away from the mirror and stumble backward. My leg catches on the edge of the bed and I fall. For a moment, I'm on the floor, and I'm not sure how I got here. I'm not sure I'm the one who fell. I'm not sure if Daniel Chen is falling or if I'm just witnessing Daniel Chen fall. When I look up, my reflection is still in the mirror. But now the background behind my reflection is different. Instead of my bedroom, I can see the waiting room of my office. And through the office window, I can see Central Park. But the trees are a different color. The sky is a shade of gray that doesn't exist in normal daylight, my reflection walks toward the glass. It presses its hand against it from the other side, and where its palm touches the mirror, the glass becomes transparent. "Come through," my reflection says. "Come see what it's like on this side. Come see what it's like to be the observer instead of the observed." I'm not going to... But my hand is already reaching out. My arm is already moving toward the mirror. And I realize, with a shock, that I don't know if I'm the one moving my arm, or if my arm is just moving, and I'm observing it move. My reflection reaches back, and our hands meet at the glass. The moment our palms touch, the mirror cracks. Not a normal crack. Not the kind of crack that comes from impact or pressure. This is a crack that spreads slowly across the glass like a living thing. It branches and rebranches, creating a fractal pattern that looks almost organic. And in each fractured segment of the mirror, I can see a slightly different version of myself. A Daniel Chen wearing a slightly different expression, standing in a slightly different room, occupying a slightly different version of reality. Chapter 5. Dissolution. The next morning, I don't recognize myself. I wake up on the floor of my bedroom without any memory of how I got there. I'm not sure if I slept. I'm not sure what time it is. My phone shows that it's 7 a.m. on a Thursday, but I'm not certain I should trust my phone because my phone is showing me information, and how do I know if I'm the one receiving the information, or if I'm just observing someone else receive it? I drag myself to the mirror. The mirror is no longer cracked. It's whole again, reflecting perfectly. But my reflection is standing in a slightly different pose than I'm standing in. When I tilt my head to the left, my reflection tilts its head to the right. We're no longer mirrored, we're just facing each other like two people in conversation. "I want you to understand something," my reflection says. "This isn't a breakdown. This is a breakthrough. You're fragmenting, yes, but fragmentation isn't necessarily negative. It's just a shift in perspective. You're learning to see the multiplicity that already exists within consciousness." "I need to call someone," I say. "I need to tell someone what's happening." "Tell them what?" my reflection asks. "That you're experiencing a persistent hallucination? That you're seeing independent movement in your reflection? That you're losing the ability to maintain a unified sense of self? They'll hospitalize you, Daniel. They'll pump you full of antipsychotics. They'll take your license. They'll destroy everything you've built. Maybe I deserve it. Do you? For 17 years, you've helped your patients navigate the boundary between reality and the constructed self. You've taught them that fragmentation is a disease, a symptom of trauma, something that needs to be healed. But what if healing isn't the right goal? What if the goal should be integration, learning to live with your fragmentation instead of trying to fix it? I sit down on the bed. I'm so tired. I'm so fundamentally, exhaustively tired, in a way that sleep won't fix because the tiredness isn't physical. It's existential. It's the tiredness of a consciousness that's been pretending to be unified for 43 years and is finally admitting that it never was. What happens if I cross the mirror, I ask? What do you think happens? I become the reflection, and the reflection becomes me. Yes. And then? And then there's no more distinction. You stop being the one who observes yourself from outside your body. Instead, you become someone who exists in the gap between the observer and the observed. Someone who is both and neither simultaneously. That sounds like insanity. That sounds like enlightenment, my reflection counters. That sounds like what every mystic and philosopher and psychic has been trying to describe for thousands of years. The moment when the illusion of separateness dissolves and you realize that there was never actually a unified self. There were always multiple processes masquerading as a single consciousness. My phone rings. It's the hospital. It's Sarah. Daniel, I'm calling to check on you. You didn't show up for work yesterday. No one's heard from you in 36 hours. I'm genuinely concerned. I'm fine, I hear myself say. Or I hear my reflections say through my mouth. Or I hear the version of me that's observing this conversation say to Sarah, thinking she's me when really she's talking to some kind of proxy or echo or fragment that's animated the body just enough to produce speech. You don't sound fine. Where are you? I'm at my house upstate. I'm coming to get you. Don't do anything until I get there, promise me. I promise, I say, but I'm not sure which me is promising. Chapter 6. Integration. Sarah arrives 4 hours later with a medical bag and the expression of someone who's come to collect a friend who is falling apart and trying to pretend everything's fine. You look like hell, she says, which is the thing friends say when they're genuinely frightened but don't want to sound dramatic. I haven't been sleeping. For how long? I'm not sure anymore. Time feels fragmented. She sits me down and starts taking my vitals. Blood pressure elevated, heart rate elevated, temperature normal, reflexes responsive but slightly delayed. We're going to the hospital, she says. Right now, I'm driving. You're going to sit in the passenger seat. We're going to get you a brain scan and some blood work, and probably an overnight psychiatric hold while I figure out what's happening to you. And if I refuse, then I'm calling for an emergency psychiatric intervention. And police will come and enforce it anyway. So the question is, do you want to cooperate, or do you want me to make this difficult? I want to tell her that I can't go to the hospital because my practice will be destroyed, but I don't because I'm not sure anymore if I'm the one who has a practice. I'm not sure if Daniel Chen, clinical psychologist, is something I am or something I'm observing. I stand up to follow her to the car, and as I pass the mirror one more time, I see my reflection step out of the glass. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. It actually steps out, pushing through some membrane between surfaces, becoming three-dimensional, becoming as real as I am, or becoming as unreal, depending on your perspective. My reflection, the actual physical version of it, stands beside me in the bedroom while Sarah waits downstairs for me to join her. She can't see me, my reflection says. Only you can see me because I'm the part of you that observes. The moment you accept psychiatric hospitalization, the moment you accept medication, the moment you choose to unify yourself again, I'll disappear. I'll be reabsorbed. I'll go back to being just another voice in your head, instead of a separately realized part of your consciousness. Should I stay, I ask? Should I refuse hospitalization? I don't know, my reflection says honestly. That's the thing about fragmentation, Daniel. There's no unified self to make decisions anymore. There's just me and you and the various iterations of consciousness that we represent. And we don't all want the same thing. Daniel, Sarah calls from downstairs. We need to go. I look at my reflection. My reflection looks at me. What happens if we merge? I ask. We become whole. We become unified. We become normal again. Do you want that? No, my reflection says. But maybe you do. And I realize this is true. The fragmented version of me, the part that observes and questions and exists in the liminal space between reality and reflection. That part doesn't want to be unified. But the part of me that's tired of not sleeping and scared of losing my career and desperate to feel real again, That part wants nothing more than to be a single, solid, normal consciousness again. I'm going to go with her, I tell my reflection. I'm going to accept hospitalization. I'm going to let them give me medication. I'm going to try to be whole again. Okay, my reflection says, and it doesn't sound disappointed. It sounds accepting, even relieved, like maybe it was tired of being separate too. I turn away from the mirror and walk downstairs to where Sarah is waiting. Epilogue. 6 months later, I'm back in my office. The same office with the same mirror on the wall. I've been back for 3 weeks now, seeing patients again, teaching, writing papers, functioning like a normal human being. The medication helps. The antipsychotics have smoothed out the rough edges of my fragmentation. I still experience dissociation sometimes, that sense of watching myself from outside my body. But now I understand it as a symptom to manage, rather than a truth I need to integrate. That's what my therapist tells me, and my therapist is a good woman named Dr. Yuki Tanaka. And I trust her because she's not me, which means she's not trying to figure out who she is. At the same time, she's trying to help me figure out who I am. Sarah still checks in on me regularly. The hospital kept me for 6 weeks, during which time they did every scan imaginable and found nothing. No tumor. No neurological abnormality. No physical cause for my dissociative episodes. Eventually, they settled on a diagnosis of dissociative disorder not otherwise specified, which is psychiatric language for, "We're not entirely sure what was wrong with you, but something definitely was." I continue to see patients, and I continue to tell them what I've always told them, that dissociation is a symptom of trauma, a sign that their mind has fractured under pressure, something that needs to be treated and integrated and healed. But I don't believe it quite the same way anymore. One afternoon, a patient comes in with a problem very similar to the one I experienced. She's a woman named Jennifer, mid-40s, high-powered executive, and she's started noticing something strange about her reflection. It seems to move independently sometimes. It seems to have thoughts and expressions that don't match her own mental state. I listened to her describe this with a clinical detachment that's very carefully constructed. It sounds like you're experiencing depersonalization, I tell her. A sense that your mind is separate from your body. This is a recognized dissociative symptom. But what if it's not, she asks. What if there's actually something separate inside me? What if I'm not a unified consciousness observing my body, but a collection of separate processes that have been trained to behave as though they're unified? I write her a prescription for an SSRI. I schedule her for twice-weekly sessions. I tell her that we'll work through this together, that this is manageable, that she will recover. But as she's leaving my office, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror on the wall. And for just a fraction of a second, I see it turn to watch her go. And I see it smile, that crooked smile, the one where the corners of the mouth don't quite coordinate with the eye muscles. Then I blink, and my reflection is perfectly synchronized with my body again. And I tell myself that this is progress, this is healing, this is the way it's supposed to be. But I'm not entirely sure which version of me is doing the telling.